Hi, I'm Danny Ecker with your Chicago Business Today Midday Report. One of Chicago's largest privately held banks appears to have its savior lined up. A group of investors led by prominent banker Roberto Herencia has applied to acquire Chicago-based North Community Bank, one of the 5 lenders that make up the $2.5 billion asset Metropolitan Bank Group. Herencia said almost a year ago that his group intended to buy Metropolitan from the Visayas family, giving it the cash infusion it needs to avoid failure. Here with more on what the acquisition may signal for the banking sector is our Steve Daniels. Steve, it's a big first step here, or a sort of first formal step here for Herencia. This is still maybe far from a done deal, though. Why is that?
This has taken a really long time to get to this point. Usually an application like this would have been filed much sooner after an announcement. The issues have seemed to have surrounded, now nobody's talking, so, you know, but the issues seem to have surrounded, at least in part, information that bank regulators want about Mr. Herencia's investors. They're all foreigners by and large, and don't necessarily want to give the kind of information that the regulators want about themselves and their finances and the like. There are other issues. The basic bottom line here is that this is far from completed, but this really is an important first step that you have to go through.
And let's recap again, why so many people in the banking sector are sort of looking at this situation and maybe what it signals about the larger, especially for community banking, larger sector.
Yeah, this is, we've had a series of recapitalizations of troubled or quasi-troubled banks in this market. But this one is the biggest and the most troubled. And to have gone down this, at least this far down the road with a recapitalization, I think the feeling is that if this one gets done, that's a very, very good sign for the banking market in general in Chicago, that a number of the banks that still are unable to really lend because of their condition might very well find investors that will enable them to become active banks again.
Of course, Metropolitan had its fair share of maybe soured loans that maybe put them in some dire straits in the first place. Was that maybe a case of the economic climate as a whole, or was this something that perhaps just needed a change of leadership from what they had under the Visayas family?
Well, I think both. Certainly the economic climate is the reason why so many of those loans, and many of them were mainly commercial real estate loans. All banks that mainly made commercial real estate loans suffered pretty badly in this climate. But clearly this bank was very aggressive, and it suffered disproportionately. So in those kinds of situations, a change in leadership often is what is called for.
Yeah, well, they'll take a cash infusion if they can get it.
Absolutely.
All right, Steve, thanks a lot.
Sure.